Let's jump right into today's explainer, folks. We are unpacking a massive cultural clash that recently hit the airwaves over on Fox News. We're going to see how a single, super controversial social media post from a literal Hollywood icon ended up sparking this huge nationwide debate about political hostility, and even wilder, how one scholar is using that exact pop culture moment to diagnose what he calls a fatal flaw in Western civilization itself. It's a heavy theory, so let's get into it.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, a galactic political divide. 2. The Skywalker backlash. 3. Defining suicidal empathy. 4. Symptoms of the affliction. And finally, number 5, civilizational suicide versus survival.
Starting off with Section 1, a galactic political divide.
So, the Fox News broadcast we're looking at makes a pretty bold claim right out of the gate. They argue that political disagreements in the U.S. have, well, essentially crossed the Rubicon. The host suggests that the left's political hostility is literally mutating. It's not just your standard run-of-the-mill policy debates anymore. Instead, they claim it's shifting into this realm of spreading hate that's reached, as they put it, a galaxy far, far away. The argument here is that this isn't just partisan bickering, it's an infection catching some of our most beloved pop culture icons.
Which brings us to Section 2, the Skywalker backlash.
And here's the catalyst for the whole segment. Mark Hamill. Yep, Luke Skywalker himself. Hamill shared a picture online of Donald Trump in a grave with the caption, "If only now." Now, Fox News didn't just brush this off as some tasteless internet joke. Instead, they contextualized it as a serious threat. The broadcast draws a direct line from this celebrity's dark post to real-world fears of political violence. They specifically compare Hamill's rhetoric to the kind of intense hostility that has allegedly led to real-world violence against conservative figures like Charlie Kirk. And man, the online backlash was fierce. You can see one quote right here, where a user aggressively attacks Hamill's character and relevance. Now, regardless of where you personally fall on the political spectrum, reactions like this make it glaringly obvious how fast online discourse goes from 0 to 100. It escalates from a polite disagreement straight into a raw, venomous clash. And it's exactly this kind of cultural toxicity that sets the stage for the scholar they brought on to analyze it.
Moving on to Section 3, defining suicidal empathy.
Enter Dr. Gad Saad. He's a scholar at Ole Miss, and Fox News brought him in to make sense of this hyperpolarized climate. And he introduces this really startling concept, suicidal empathy. He argues that empathy, a trait we basically always celebrate, can actually become hyperactive. His claim is that when this empathy targets the wrong subjects, or is invoked in the completely wrong situations, it literally causes a society to commit civilizational seppuku, meaning self-disembowelment. It is a striking, super graphic image. He's suggesting that misapplied compassion is actively destroying Western society from the inside out.
Now look at the clear duality Dr. Saad sets up here. On one hand, you have adaptive empathy, which he says is a wonderful virtue. I mean, it's absolutely required for social species like us to converse, connect, and just function, right? But then, on the flip side, there's suicidal empathy. So Saad isn't saying empathy itself is bad. Instead, he insists this dysregulated, dark side of it is entirely fatal. Think of it like the difference between taking a life-saving medicine and taking a lethal overdose of that exact same drug.
Let's look at Section 4, symptoms of the affliction.
So what does this actually look like in the real world? Dr. Saad illustrates his point with a few specific arguments where he believes blind compassion has tangible costs. First up, immigration. He argues that assuming all immigrants assimilate equally, like comparing someone like Elon Musk to someone with terror ties, actually endangers the American experiment. Second, he looks at the justice system. He claims that refusing to imprison chronic repeat felons just because we want to be a nice guy puts the public in direct danger. And third, he argues that elevating indigenous knowledge over the scientific method, allegedly out of a fear of white supremacy, actively clobbers the foundations of Western reason.
And he actually takes these points even further with some incredibly provocative claims. He alleges that women are the demographic most afflicted by this dysregulated empathy. He even cites hypothetical scenarios where victims of horrific crimes might actually protect their abusers just to avoid marginalizing a minority community. Plus, he points out what he sees as a deep irony, Westerners fiercely defending ideologies that are fundamentally opposed to Western values. His core argument here, people are so driven by this empathy affliction that they'll act directly against their own self-interest and physical safety. Okay, so why is this happening? What's the root cause? Well, according to the interview, the underlying disease is a desperate psychological need. It happens when people define their very personhood by the need to appear infinitely tolerant, compassionate, and magnanimous. Dr. Saad basically argues that when your entire identity is wrapped up in being perceived as the good guy, logic goes out the window. Self-preservation becomes nearly impossible. You just can't make those tough, practical decisions required to actually sustain a society.
Finally, we've got Section 5, Civilizational Suicide versus Survival. To anchor this whole modern cultural critique in human history, Saad borrows a pretty chilling maxim from the British historian Arnold Toynbee. The quote is, "Civilizations do not die by murder, they die by suicide." The big takeaway here is that external forces like foreign armies or outside empires aren't actually the primary threat to a society. Rather, it's our own internal decay. According to Saad's thesis, our runaway empathy is setting the stage for us to literally destroy ourselves from within.
Which leaves us with the final, really provocative thought to ponder today. If adaptive empathy is the very thing that allows us to connect, converse, and just literally be human, how do we make sure it doesn't become the exact mechanism that undoes us? How do we balance that vital light of compassion with the cold, necessary instinct for self-preservation? It's a massive question drawn straight from the sources we analyzed today, and it perfectly encapsulates the tension of our modern cultural divide. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this structured look helped clarify some of these highly complex perspectives.